Wano, Ekabo, Barka the Zua. I greet you all. Una welcome, una well done. My name is Amarachi Atama Ugu. I am sincerely sorry for not being here live, but I am happy as a founding member of Poets in Nigeria, celebrating 10 good years. I am happy to be here to share in this amazing landmark celebration. I am going to be talking about what you know me for, which is chant, as a catalyst for cultural and creative awakening. So we are going to take it gradual, and hopefully at the end of this presentation, there will be a conversation that will spark up the entire thing. So chant as a catalyst for cultural and creative awakening. For some of you who have followed me over the years, you would know that not only do I speak of chant, not only am I a chant artist, but also a language, cultural advocate, mother tongue advocate in the field, in this industry of the creative arts, where we stand in to represent the oral arts. As we begin, I am excited to invite you all to join me in this opening invocation, and I will try to sing. For we are the keepers of sound, the carriers of memory in our throats. Before ink, before paper, our voices were the libraries of people. For we stand not to perform, but to awaken the sleeping ancestors. Each syllable, a drum, each breath, a breeze across centuries. For we sing to remind the world that silence is not absence, but the waiting room of sounds. I'll stop the share and share again just to be sure that you hear my sound. Okay? As we come into this invocation, we are going to continue to look at how do we see chants as a catalyst for cultural and creative awakening. And I start with this beginning quote. We said, before written words, our voices were archives. For anyone who is an African will know that we were an oral people. Outside of the codes of communication that we use, such as the Nsibidi, such as the Uli, and many others that you find in the African continent, we use codes, inscripted codes, iconographic codes, but also do we pass through our stories and histories through voice. So our voices served as the archive. Let us start by defining chant poetry. What is chant? What is chant poetry? For those of us who might not know. Chant is an intangible cultural, rhythmic, oral performative poetry of hybrid of song and speech, which is why sometimes it is being studied as poetry. Sometimes you also see it being studied as speech. Sometimes you also see it being studied as music, a form of music. So it is a blend of all of it. It is used to inform, to educate, to entertain, to share histories, to share culture, to show and celebrate our cultural heritage. It is a form of oral literature, a unique hypnotic traditional art The chant art is one of the oldest Igbo art forms, and I believe the same for many other communities in Africa, which is reputed to be as old as the Igbos themselves, as old as the people themselves. An ancient poetic heritage, which was also a vehicle for transmission of history. Chant is not performance alone. It is possession of memory, as Ngige Wationgo shared. Now we are going to look at chant as an intangible cultural heritage. It is not tangible. It is an intangible cultural heritage. Let's look at what it is. What did UNESCO say? How did UNESCO define it as an intangible cultural heritage? We're going to do that quickly.
Intangible cultural heritage takes infinite forms. It is a source of human creativity and cultural diversity. Living heritage brings human beings and communities closer together. The 2003 Convention aims at safeguarding this heritage and ensuring its continuous transmission. In 10 years, UNESCO listed almost 500 intangible cultural heritage elements. But how do we grasp the diversity of these elements? How are the cultural practices of communities across more than 100 countries connected? UNESCO mapped them all against 1,000 concepts and invites you to dive into intangible cultural heritage. How does living heritage relate to nature? And what about you? What about your heritage? Keep it lively and pass it on.
So this is how UNESCO discussed intangible cultural heritage as living heritage that we are supposed to preserve, those things that we do not hold, those things that are not physical, the orality of our people, those things that through it we pass down our histories, our cultures, living archive of us as a people. So I'll be looking at it from the Igbo art perspective, a little bit of it. In Igbo art, or in the Igbo worldview, we call chant mbem. When you go to different communities, you will find different names for chant. So mbem is the general name that we refer to as the Igbo chant, which is often characterized by their ceremonial ways of performance. So within this genre, there will be a range of thematic subcategories that exist in it. And we are going to be looking at some of them. One of it is Mbemunwa, which is chant of birth. The birth chant that you see performed when a child is born. Also, we know the Mbemu Akwamozu. Mbemu Akwamozu is the funeral chant. Just as there is a chant for when a life is born, there is also a chant for when someone is a kind of moving into the other realm, because in the Igbo worldview, we do not believe that death is the end of life. So also we have Mbemu Otito, which is the praise chant. We have Mbemungpolite, which is the awakening chant. So in this kind of chant, you can see the awakening chant is where you use chant being a tool to call on the people depending on the theme or the message. It awakens the spirit. Let's say there is something that is happening and it seems like there is no serious attention paid to it. Through chants, there could be a call of awakening. Mbemanga, which is chant of war, which is used to in times of war as a form of motivation, form of energizer through voice. We have Mbemungpoku, which is the call chant. We have Mbemumeme, which is the ceremonial chant. And before we go on, I am going to start by a little short chant that we serve as Mbem Nkpoko, which is an introduction into our onward conversation. Ọjà kpọlitere m ọnụ mgbe ụtọ m dị na ntị wakporịrị mana ama ndị a na-egwuru mmiri ebutere ọka kpọlitere m mmụọ kpọlitere m mmụọ ndị nke m ndị hụrụ m n'anya kpọlitere m mmụọ ndị ọma ike ga-eji m ọnụ kpọlitere m ya ka hazi m ụzọ na iro m anya mgbagba na-akpasi n'ụwa mmiri na agwụ na-enwezi mmekọ ụlọ atọ so ụtọ nke karịrị nte bakwutere nte si na ihe kpatara anya ji ebe n'osisi kpọrọ nkụ bụ na mma ha abụọ ndị mgbe ọ dị ọkwa ilu Igbo ka mpụ ndị Igbo jiri okwu tupem eziokwu dị apụtị afọ bụ ire afọ bụ ndụ Thank you very much. So as we introduce that is just an abstract short introduction. So let us look at chant as memory. Chant is vessel of collective identity, which is why it can serve as a catalyst for cultural awakening. It carries, or it's a carrier of ancestral knowledge of Igbo worldview. Note the word Oku, which we see as life force, Ikendo, Oku Bondo. When we say word is life, chant uses words to pass on its message. And when we look at its historical significance, we see that historically, chant functions as the heartbeat of communal life. It preserved oral histories, carried spiritual invocations, and reinforced collective identity. In African societies, chants guided rituals of birth, marriage, death, while also serving as coded language of resistance during colonial times and enslavement. Which is why here you see that there is a continuity when you trace the journeys of the time of enslavement and diasporic Black community. It is part of the research I am doing now, tracing that passage and that transfer of art into what some of the things that we see today as the Black art. So for the Igbo and other traditions, chants were not a mere performance, but essential acts of survival living archives that stored memories, invoked power, and transmitted cultural values across generations. Now we talked a little bit about chants as a form of resistance. In chant, we have the coded languages in enslavement and colonization that was used as a form of resistance. When you look at some of the clips and videos of the enslaved population in the past, you will see that even while they worked in plantations, they kept chanting and chanting and chanting, using it as a tool, a healing mechanism to keep them going while also passing through the situation. Chant has long been a weapon of resistance used to protest injustice, encode hidden messages, and rally communities in the face of oppression. And you see, one of the African quotes you come across here a lot of the time is that they tried to bury us, but we were seeds and we sang on the ground. Chant as creative awakening. Chant sparks creative awakening, reviving traditions, inspiring new forms, and bridging ancestral voices with contemporary expressions. It becomes call for the soul. In recent time, chant has been blended with modern beats used in films, music, theater, exhibitions. Chant is a bridge between tradition and invention. If you watch the Black Panther, you will see how chant really came to life in Black Panther. How chant was used in different scenes of the film, especially if you watch the time where he paid homage when there was a fight between the king and the returning cousin, where he asked to be thrown out of the cliff. You will see how the blend of chants, remembering the Igbo landing, that scene was in remembering the Igbo landing. And you see how chant was really used to highlight that particular scene in passing the message. If you've not seen Black Panther, please try and do. We also see, I also went to the UK to perform chant in a play in the British Royal National Theatre for 52 shows, totaling about 208 performances in those 52 shows. And that was a theater performance on stage that was used to as a kind of introduction to every scene of that play. So we see how chants come to life in theater in modern time. Here we have organized exhibitions of chants. When you go to museums today, you will see that there is now a kind of hybrid exhibition that is going on. Not only are they exhibiting just artifacts now, we now see screens, we now see interactive museums where you touch a screen and you can have sounds, you can have films, you can have a kind of conversation, high-tech conversation going on in recent times. So we see how chants continue to come to life in different spaces through different means as a blend with different arts in order to pass this message across. So chant is a bridge between tradition and invention. Chant, spirituality, and healing. Through the ancient times till today, chant has always been used as a form of healing, especially during grief. If you look at the Nsukka people, for instance, when someone dies, they don't just start to cry or start announcing it. There is always, even the cry almost look so rhythmic, like a chant. There is always this voice where people begin to chant. If you are from Nsukka or you've been around Nsukka when they lose someone, you notice this, where they start, ele, oh, ele, oh. And in that, you could see a kind of an elderly person can come up with voice and begin to tell stories of that person that just died. What does that do? That is not just to tell stories. That those acts in that time allows people to actually cry out, to actually grieve. Because the moment those voices come, you begin to see that even those who could not cry break down in tears. Because we believe in the cosmology that when you cry out the pain, it enables healing instead of grieving internally, because that could cause damage. So you begin to also see its renewal in Afro-diasporic healing chants that is now introduced even in the religious spaces through the time of enslavement until today. You see that the transfer of these chants into the African American culture that we see today, that in churches, you see how this chant is being used in amazingly solemn and beautiful ways that will introduce healing. Now there's beginning to be huge dive into mental health and art, using art as a form of mental health well-being. And you begin to see how chants can also be used, because I've organized some few evenings of chant poetry. Sometimes you perform, people do not understand what you're saying, but you begin to see how they are shedding tears, how they, when you are done performing, they hug you, they share with you, they tell you, thank you for sharing that piece. It really relieved me of a lot. People begin to remember their stories. People begin to remember their grandmothers. People begin to trace. People want to take their DNA just because you had a chance. So there is a lot it does, conversation with the spirit that we cannot finish discussing here. So the rhythm activates collective synchronization that you see across cultures and generations. When you chant the old, the new, the modern, the ancient, you see a blend of all of it play out. So to chant together is to breathe together. That is a quote I'll leave for you. The creative economy of chant. Chant has become a cultural product. Digital orality is being amplified globally today. Like I said, it is being introduced in a lot of movies today, on theaters, music. Few years ago, when you play things like Oja, it will be seen as, the things that they play in the village. But today we are seeing the introduction of Piano, Oja piano, and all of that. And people dance it across nations and enjoy it. The creative economy of chant lies in its ability to generate both cultural and material value. In contemporary times, we also see chant appear in digital platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Spotify, as they amplify chant traditions, allowing communities to monetize performances, connect with global audiences by merging oral heritage with creative industries. Chants begin to transform from an ancient practice into a driver of cultural tourism today, education, and digital entrepreneurship, providing that tradition that can sustain both identity and economy. So digital orality in today's village square. So not only is it now seen as those the chant of the past, today it is being reintroduced. I would say reintroduced because it was there before. There was a neglect, but now you begin to see a kind of reintroduction. You begin to see a whole lot of younger chant artists, which we didn't have in the past. A lot of younger chant artists are springing out from different parts of even our community in Nigeria. You will see a lot of people now have chant as a career, unlike few years ago when you almost be mocked and like, what are you doing? Okay, so global continuities. African chant mirrored in Black church, like I said, Native Americans, Caribbean chant resonates diasporic continuities. You see chant Renaissance, which is chants being used in Christendom, where they now when you go to the Black churches here or the Native American communities, you see how they use chants in different ways. The Native American communities have a lot of different ways that they perform their chants. Some of them are chants of rituals and all of that. You see them in circles, going around, holding hands on their shoulders. While when you go to the Black American churches, you see how they've Christianized a lot of the chants, and it's now used in worship and a way that only them can actually understand, which is what they carried through the time of enslavement until today. So every chant is a seed scattered across oceans, sprouting wherever it lands. So it doesn't die. It's today it beginning to reawaken the yearning, the hunger for culture and creativity that sometimes we almost forget that is embedded in us. So now let us conclude looking at chant as catalyst for future creativity. It inspires new art, scholarship, and activism. Chant spark contemporary creativity, shaping new forms of poetry, music, and performances, while also fueling critical scholarship and grassroots activism. Today, we see how chant. Recently, I performed in a conference here where I was calling them to wake up, tetenura, wake up, and look into what is going on in our societies today. Chant as research and pedagogy method. Beyond performance, chant become a tool for teaching, which we are beginning to use. Archiving knowledge. I was very shocked when I said there's a project I am working on, and you would be amazed the level of archived documents, chant, oral traditions that was collected during colonial times and saved in places like the Library of Congress, American Folk Art Center today, as across many other museums and archives that we might not be interested in, but those things are kept because they are important. Because in them, you find histories, stories of the people, knowledge, memories that we might all have forgotten while it is being preserved in archives across the world. So it acts as archiving knowledge and conducting research that bridge oral tradition with academic inquiry. So today, like I said, I am working on many different projects on chant, and you see the interest. You see that something that we might not have taken seriously a few years ago is now seen as a major tunnel into the memories of a lot of people that have passed, memories of centuries gone, that is being studied, is being transcribed. In the UK, we have some group of people who are transcribing the oral documents collected by one of the British anthropologists in the past. So you see, I think it is headed by Paul Basu and his team. So you see how some of the memories collected from the past is now being studied again. So there is opportunity for future collaborations. Chant opens pathway for collaborations across discipline, uniting artists, educators, activists, digital innovators to carry ancestral voices into new global spaces. In conclusion, I am going to say that Chant carries the past, shapes the present, and ignites the future. It is the heartbeat of cultural rebirth and the voice of endless expression. Ihe anyị hụrụ gbalaga ọsọ ka ọkụkọ hụrụ na-atụ ọnụ. Amaka mmiri si weba n'opi gbagoro maka ndị na-enweghị ihe anya mmụọ. Ndị be anyị siri na ekele onye ntị chiri enu anụghị ya na anụ, ugo characha adịghị echu echu. Bilie bilite n'ụra baa na mmụọ, ha akpọlite mụ gị. Agadi anaghị aka nka na egwu mara agba. Fulu ife o, fulu ife ụkwa kpọkwana gị. Fulu ife dị omimi ekweghị nghọta. Ala atọgbọgo chako, egwu dịzi. Chant has the capability to awaken sleeping traditions into living futures. And this is where I will end my presentation today. What is chant to you? How would you say that chant is used around you in your communities? And this is where I will leave you with this question so that you can also look at how chants can play out in our different spaces. So thank you very much as I leave us. We're going to do this next time.